Hello.
Hello, Jürgen. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
And there are some familiar names here. Ingrid, good to see you. Anna Maria, nice to meet you. It looks like, wait a minute, Emilio, did you shave for this or is this the new you?
Happens. No, happens time each 3
Hey,
months.
Manuel.
Hello.
Hello, Maria. How are
Hi.
you?
Greetings from Puerto Rico.
Ah, yes. We can talk later on after this is over. I mean, I know you're part of the United States. I mean, unlike some people here in the country, they want to ignore it as part of the United States. But however you would like to work on this, that would be good.
Sure, we can talk about it.
Okay, and we'll do more than talk. So it'll be more than that. And I have no idea how many people might be joining us this evening or this morning. So I'm not sure. Jürgen, did you receive the slides okay? Or you and
I have the slides. I have
okay.
the timer.
But it seems my audio is not good, eh?
No, your audio sounds good to me.
Oh.
Can everybody hear okay?
Ana Maria, hello.
Hello.
Okay.
There's Dominica. Hello. Is it midnight in Central European time or is it 11 o'clock?
It's 11. It's 11 o'clock p.m.
You switch to the daylight saving time? And Gerardo, welcome.
Thank you.
We've exchanged emails and everything, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I hope I didn't shock everyone with the flurry of emails that started coming through, and and everything. So,
Yeah.
but
Hi, Emilio.
Oh,
Hi, Ingrid. Hi, everybody. This is Domenica.
Hi everyone. Hi Dominica. Hi Emilio.
Hi.
Hola Ana María.
Hola.
Muy bien.
hola a todos.
Hola.
Hola.
it's nice to see some pictures with names after sending all those. It's just good to see everyone. Should we get started, do you think, or?
You are the chief.
We're in trouble. Okay. Oops. Jürgen started the slides, and as soon as he did that, everything disappeared from my screen. So I've got to get back onto my.
We can see your slides, Steve.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got
your own.
I've got this funny. The system has been not responding well, but here we go. Okay, I think this is it. I hope. Okay, and there we go. And Jürgen, will you operate the slides, or is that okay? Okay, we'll get started. Okay, first, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know the messages came around late, and mostly because of wanting to get some things finalized and agreed upon before we sent out the request, because there was a lot of uncertainties. As we know, with the rare diseases, there always seems to be a lot of uncertainties as we go on with our activities. So thank you for joining us. And we will get into the regular pattern of every 2 weeks to hold the meetings. And we also will do a little bit of a reassessment based on what you all say to us after several weeks of presentations. This is the right way to go. If there's another method that we should use, whether we should switch to panels or what have you. So however you would think would be better. But I think we really have arranged some outstanding speakers to present to us what's going on in their own countries, to highlight all the activities and the opportunities that we're looking at. So just to let you know too, at the end of all this, we do hope to produce a report and also to have an in-person conference sometime in 2022 if the COVID virus permits us to do so. So I'll go ahead and get started, and we'll see where this all takes. I think we'll do maybe about 20 minutes of my presentation, and then we'll jump to Emilio and Ana Maria then after my presentation. So this is the ERCAL Initiative. I have the website, which I forgot to include in the email out to everyone. It's like, oh my goodness. So I hope everyone's received the second email today. And then so there it is. It's what we'd like to do. And can I, no, Jürgen, I guess you have to change the slides, please. Next slide, please. Third slide, there we go. And I'm going to try to do something else here too. That didn't work. I'm sorry. Well, anyway, these are some of the goals, the interim goals and objectives of what we'd like to see for ERCAL. And I would say that even though we've stated these as interim goals, as we progress and we go through the discussions and the planning and the various meetings, we would like for you to help identify the long-term goals and objectives of what we're working on, and where you think the region should go, where you think your country should go, individually and as groups. So we are trying to get a region-wide awareness to all the issues related to the rare disorders that we can work with as various organizations, because there are so many partners involved with the rare diseases activities. As we've heard from several folks, we particularly are interested in working with PAHO and other major medical specialty organizations to help provide the relationship between diagnosis and treatment and care of the patients with rare diseases. And we want to involve the research, the regulatory agencies, the healthcare service agencies. And again, there are so many differences in individual countries that we have to take all of these things into consideration. We want to provide an emphasis to early testing and diagnosis of the rare diseases. As we know, the earlier we can get a diagnosis, the more hope there is that there might be an intervention or better care for the patients and the families of what is available to them throughout the world. There are just so many other activities going on, and one of which is trying to increase access to treatments throughout the world. But that's a whole nother activity that ERCAL is working on, but we'd like to, again, bring that into what we're discussing here. And then one of the partnerships that so many of us have been involved with is the biopharmaceutical industry, the diagnostics, medical devices companies, to form collaborations to partner with all of the individual groups, the patient advocacy groups, the government agencies, everyone, because we feel the rare diseases community encompasses all of the individual organizations that we need to get things to work. And as I mentioned, the goal is when we finish all of this, we would like to have a report written, but we also would like to develop sustainable activities that we can continue after we finish the report, that there's something left behind that all the countries can work on and collaborate on moving forward. Next slide, please, Jürgen. Okay, and this is just a depiction of the number of countries and some of the numbers that we're dealing with in the ERCAL region. And you can see 640 million people. And if we were to say approximately 6% of the population, I wish we had a better estimate of whether it's between 4% and 10%, anywhere between the 4 and the 10% number are the estimates we hear. So that gives us approximately 40 million people in this whole region with a rare disease. Included here, we also want to provide an emphasis to indigenous populations and estimates there of about 3 million indigenous people with rare disorders. Next slide, please. And this following slide, which many of you are aware of, are the various countries and the legislation or the laws that are in existence with definition of a rare disease and all the available incentives and activities that may be present in the countries. And there is a wide distribution of emphasis throughout this South America, Central America, and with Mexico considered North America, we include North America. So you can see there what's going on in your countries, and you're very well aware of all the activities. Okay, next slide. So as we were working on this last year and we were hearing presentations, what constantly came through was we wanted to hear the voices from the individual countries. We all have our own opinions, I think, based on our experience and knowledge, but it didn't always reflect what the needs and the concerns, the barriers and the opportunities that were coming from individual countries. So we are seeking to hear from everyone in the various countries. And unfortunately, like as we've done in the past, where we would have a conference or two conferences that we could bring everybody together and really get down and discuss the issues in greater detail. With the way we're going today with COVID, we're just not able to bring everyone together safely. And so we've been holding a number of Zoom meetings starting last fall, I believe it was, that we heard from several different people talking about their own country. but we wanted to hear from as many countries as possible. And I think that's where you see, as we'll see later, the number of countries that we have. And we want to hear from the government agencies. So whatever you can do to help give us advice on how we should move forward, it would really be appreciated by all of the planning groups. So we're working with Alibert to help us identify patient advocacy group leaders to speak from different countries. And perhaps in doing so, we also will identify the scientists and clinicians who are really, really representative of the rare diseases in different countries. If you know of others from other countries, please share them with us and we will contact them to see if they would be available to discuss the rare diseases in their countries. Next slide, please. And here was a list of the different countries and the time frame that we've developed so that people would have the opportunity to talk. And so tonight we wanted to kick off with just this introduction to the ERCAL, but then have an example, and Emilio, Roldan, and Ana Maria Forte have agreed to talk a little bit about what's going on in Argentina. Then that will set the stage for the following countries. And you can see there are a number of confirmed speakers that we have involved that we want them to participate, but there are a number of blanks and there are a number of other countries that we have not included here. So if you can provide us that information, we'll be happy to fill in the blanks there for all of these various countries. So we also, thanks to Jürgen and Manuel, we're going to have the presentations available. You can see the little red light says it's recording. We'll have all these sessions available. So if anyone does not want to participate with the recording, please let us know and we'll have to find someone else to make that presentation, because we feel it's important for everyone to have access to these sessions here. This is sort of a major part of what we wanted to do with the initiative. Okay, next slide, please. So we also provided to the individual speakers a template so we could sort of follow along with the same outline for each of the countries, so that when we came to the point of writing up the report, we would have similar fields that we could compare and highlight in the report. I think that's why we sort of gave the mandate for the individual sections here that we located and distributed throughout your presentations to help us prepare for the final report and the discussion. Okay, next slide. So we originally had 10 different areas, and we did a doodle poll to find out which ones were really we considered to be most important. So we're going to repeat that poll later on, but we came up, we felt that 10 individual webinars might be a little bit too many. So Manuel Posada and Luis Barrera and others looked at the 10 issues, and they came up with these 5 major overarching issues that we'd like to discuss on separate webinars. We'll have panelists discussing this, and you can see there the major areas are the research infrastructure, research collaboration, technology advances, including telehealth, telemedicine, preclinical innovation, product discovery, repurposing and development, and then the impact of COVID on the whole rare diseases community, and what has it meant as far as patients having access to clinicians and to the hospitals as needed. If there are clinical trials, any impact upon the clinical trials. But you can see within each of these categories, you have a broad spread of activities and needs. And so we will be addressing these issues as we move forward. And we don't know, we'd like to do each of these in an hour. I think some have said, well, to do all of these, each one like a research infrastructure within an hour could be a little difficult to do. And so we'll work through things to try to pull that together. And see what we can do. Okay, the next slide, please. Now, I mentioned the indigenous peoples, the indigenous populations, and you can see there the distribution of what we're looking at. And certainly a number of people around the world have spent time with the indigenous populations, and we feel there are so many people involved that we have to do something to make sure that they are included in having access to all the treatments and interventions that everyone else has. And so you can see the large number of patients in the entire region that we have to address. And I think we'll be working on this, and I'm not sure exactly how we'll come about, but a final discussion. But I think we'll hold a number of discussions about the indigenous populations. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, and these were some talking points, and I will provide a copy of the slides, or in addition, if you'd like them, or if you just want to refer back to the recording of this. But I can also provide the slides out to you if you'd like. So these are some of the considerations that people have voiced about indigenous populations, and a lot of these came from Australia and New Zealand, with the various indigenous populations, from people who had experience there, in providing an emphasis to care and treatment of the various populations. And so you can see that we have a lot to learn and from these groups, but the partnerships are available, and I think we have to take advantage of them. And I think for everyone, and it's often difficult to collect the reference data in special populations. And so there will be a lot of discussions about how we collect information, how we use that information, and how we make it available. So it's a tremendous amount of work building up the trust and sharing of information as appropriately as people would like. And the next slide, please. And this is our the steering committee members, and you see a wide distribution of individuals from many countries, including some of the patient advocacy groups. And I see Juan Carrion, I misspelled, I put an A at the end of his name. I'll have to clean that up. But you can see the number of different people from different countries. And if you have any questions and you know these individuals, please chat with them about what you see are needs or concerns, or how to proceed that might be a little bit better than what we're proposing. We also are looking for various partners to join with us in this initiative. And we've got Alibera, the America's Health Foundation, the Undiagnosed Diseases Network International. Then there's the Global Genomic Medicine, see you guys later, Collaborative, G2MC, and then ICOR, the International Collaborative on Rare Diseases and Orphan Drugs. But we do need more partners. And as the picture depicts there, we're not quite in a free fall and joining together, but sometimes I think we all feel that that's sort of what we're doing. We're falling, we've all jumped out of the plane and haven't opened our parachutes yet. And now we're trying to assemble into what we're doing. And what we do hope what we can do is bring everyone together to discuss the issue and gain some thoughts. And if you have the next slide, please, I'll go through these real quick. ICOR published 2 papers that came out of previous conferences. One was in Tokyo back in 2011. And ironically, we were scheduled for 2010, and the tsunami occurred then, and it canceled the meeting with all the destruction that occurred there. But we did come up with the Yuki Wariso Declaration that's published in 2012. And that will give you an idea of sort of what we're leaning towards. But then the second publication that just came out last year was from our next slide, please, was from a conference that we held in Cape Town, South Africa. And it was published in late 2019. And you see there many of the activities that we experienced in Africa we're further along than in Africa. And so I think, we were really talking about the need for legislation or policy. Many of the countries now in South America have the policies in place. But some of the other things are still the realities for the patients and the family, the stigmatization that occurs, limited education, employment. I think psychosocial aspects of rare diseases, the economic burden of rare disease, all of these things are very, very similar in whatever country we go to. And I think what the feeling is that wherever we go, and with trying to get a focus on rare diseases, we need the national government emphasis on research, regulatory, social services to make things a little bit better for the families and the patients with rare diseases. It's a tremendous amount of effort. And I don't know if many of you saw the release of the report from the Every Life Foundation, ELF. They released a report right before Rare Diseases Day on the socioeconomic burden of rare diseases. And I think it'd be a good report. I can send out that link to you later on also. I think it'd be a good thing to look at. It really highlights many of the problems that people have talked about for years, but we're finally getting numbers to really reflect what these burdens are, out-of-pocket expenses, the cost to society of having a rare disease and having a treatment or no treatment at all. So the next slide, just a thank you. And I don't know if we have time for questions. Jürgen, I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed with the questions. Oops. Up.
Minutes or so we can go to the next few talks.
Any questions, or I don't know if we can open up any of the mics or anything. Okay. If not, I mean, if you want to, you can write to us later. If you have no questions right now, we can work on this, on your getting responses back to you. As soon as you write an email to us, we'll get back to you directly. So, Emilio, you want to take it over for Argentina?
Yeah.
And Anna Maria. So if you want to do the introductions, I'll turn it to you. And several other people came on in, so welcome everyone. Good to see some of you in person here. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for this opportunity. And I will now talk in a few minutes. I have a few slides to show about rare diseases in Argentina, which I believe that the issue is common to many Latin American countries. So maybe what I'm going to say today, you will find that happens also in other Latin American countries. Of course, I'm a medical doctor, and so my view will be from the medical and scientific sector of the problem. And after me, Ana Maria will summarize a little bit some issues that are seen better from the patient side. I'm Emilio Roldan. I belong to different institutions. One is Quali DOT, which is a research company making research and development for the pharma industry. CERIT is a company willing to cooperate for initiative for rare diseases in Latin America. It's also a new company, and ICOR. So these are my conflict of interest. What I'm going to say now is it doesn't represent to any of these institutions. I'm going to show you my own thoughts and feelings, and I hope you can share it. Next slide. Some few features about the country. Argentina is a large country, about 45 million people living here. We don't know how many people live with rare diseases, but we estimate 2.2 or maybe more. Well, we exactly don't know because we don't have a good register here. And as many of the countries of the world, I believe, is the same issue. We have at this moment an annual inflation of around 40%, which is very high. The gross domestic product fall 10% last year, and we believe that because around 30% of the economy is in black, it may be double than that. So at this moment, we are in an economic and social crisis that is impacting in the, of course, in the rare disease issues in grade level. From the other side, we have a good education level with around 80% of the population that had completed the educational requirements from the first and the secondary level, and 1.5 million of students at the university. We have many good universities, nice universities, and forming a lot of researchers, which I think is a basic resource to cooperate and work for the rare diseases. Our research national system has high recognition in medicine, biotechnology, nanotechnology. So I think that that's a positive thing that we should highlight. The healthcare system in Argentina means that use around 8% of the GDP of the country, but 37% or maybe more than that insurance. So our problem in the country is not only the indigenous or native people, it's more than that because there are much more people not having good health attendance in the country. Around 50% of the population is covered by social unions services, mostly workers' unions. And a small portion of the people, around 9%, 10% maybe, are using private systems that are also many organizations. So what I want to mean is that our health system is very chaotic. So we have a large country, economic problems, high education, and a very chaotic health system. It's a formula that will explain much of the problems we are suffering for the rare diseases. So next, I'm going to mention some problems that I see from the medical and research position, but we don't have only problems, but I will now, this night, highlight the problems because I think we had to start to identify and recognize where we are in order to start working and collaborating from Argentina to the international community. First, we have a problem of positioning. We don't know what to do. Where are the rare diseases in the research or in the health system? Maybe in existence in the previous year. In the year 2010, I could make here a first big Congress. I remember that very well because that changed the scenario. From the 2010 to now, rare diseases begin to appear in the words of the politicians and in the managers of the health companies in Argentina. That was very nice, fitting with ICOR. And the problem is that the rare diseases are not in the agenda, in the public agenda of the health needs, and we have no national program. That's one problem, and we don't have a specific funding for rare diseases. That means that rare diseases have to compete with the common or popular diseases for fundings or for we define rare diseases in Argentina and maybe in many Latin American countries as low prevalence diseases because they were rare. Doesn't sound good in our language, in our culture. But everything that is low has some negative also connotations, like not anything that is low is not a priority in the politician interest, and that is also a problem of positioning of the diseases in Argentina. The next slide. We also have a problem of scientific and industrial understanding, I would say, and there's a lack of rare diseases in the agenda in the research system, and there's a reason for that I will explain later. And also our industry has well capacities, well equipped, and Argentina export medication to Europe and US and many parts of the world, but it's not working with orphan products. It's not developing orphan products. Of course, the country is making copies or generics, but not contributing to the making new medicines or for orphan drugs, orphan products for the rare disease that needs our capacity. So we have good research, as said before, we have good industry, but we are not working in a level we should in international collaboration for rare disease. We also have a lack of regulatory guidance or facilities for rare disease like other countries do have. And that make very hard for the investor or the private or the public investor to work in rare diseases. And that's something that we can manage and we should work. It needs some awareness of which are the benefits of working for rare diseases to change this panorama. And even if there are some isolated initiatives, they find a lot of difficulties from the pragmatic point of view, the difficulty to diagnose a quantity or proper group of patients to make clinical trials, for example, to recruit and to find financial media. So the researchers, the ones who are willing to work with rare diseases, they are facing a problem from the pragmatic point of view for preclinical or clinical studies as well. Next slide. Of course, the main problem perhaps is the lack of encouragement to the scientists to work in the field of rare diseases. There are not specific incentives. We have a good basket of scientists, good resources, but they do not work on rare diseases. And one of the reasons is that our scientific career in the country is based on the number of publication or citation index they achieve in order to progress in their career. Of course, if you make an average study in hypertension, diabetes, or osteoporosis, you get points. And you make a wonderful study in a rare disease, you get very few points. So the researchers are not willing to work with rare diseases. First, because they don't have funds or they have pragmatic difficulties, as mentioned before, but then they do not progress in their career because the literature in rare diseases is not so popular as other diseases. You know that very well. But we have a cultural problem by which there's a very few translation of the research findings to the industry. It's around below 1% of the expenditures. I think that in other developed countries is around 20, 30%, well, less than 1% in Argentina. We have, we are improving in patenting things, but still we have a very low patent rate in the country. And I think that by working with rare disease, we can increase our patent rate very quickly. So a big problem is that scientific environment and the industrial environment are mostly disconnected. And that's one feature of the country. Next slide. Let's go to the next. There's also a problem of the management, the previous slide, please. The previous one. That one, yes. Of healthcare management. The rare disease experts work isolated and are barely associated with networks. We, while working in the Heisel Foundation, we make a survey some years ago, and we find that around less than 10% of the experts in rare disease in the countries are familiar with the international networks. So the isolation is not only geographical, but also cultural. The healthcare resources are in average good in the country, but not well distributed. You can find good diagnosis and experts and tools to work with rare disease in the big cities, but 100 kilometers apart from the big cities, the situation is completely the opposite. The awareness of rare disease is very poor within the primary healthcare professional, and that's very important because the patients that go to the public hospital or to the social security system are assisted by the primary healthcare physicians or professionals in the first step. And it may demand years to go into awareness between these people. So I think that education of the primary healthcare physicians in rare diseases is a mandatory priority to be done. The awareness is also poor. Keep the previous slide, please. The awareness is also poor for prevention of rare disease. I think that this happens all over the world. It's very costly to treat rare diseases, and it will be much, much cheaper to prevent rare diseases. And there are things to be done. And in countries like Argentina, suffering now an economical crisis, prevention should be also a priority to be developed here. The genetic services are improving in the last year, but still not enough. And the accessibility to orphan drugs and diagnosis are also been improving in the last year, but still the rate of accessibility is very low. Now, the next slide. Argentina and Latin America. Argentina is geographically, historically, by language, by culture, linked to the majority of the Latin American and Caribbean country. And the complexity of the rare disease impact in the region almost made mandatory regional vision. The rare disease is not a problem of a given country. It's a problem that had to be taken and worked out. And also, we need a network to coordinate the healthcare experts. Sometimes one expert are in Argentina, one city, the other one is in Mexico or in Brazil, and they are also disconnected. And we need to work in specific scientific programs, not to repeat in one country the same that in the other country, but to coordinate, to organize, and to see how we can use our resources, our available research and development resources, to make the more quantity of rare disease research we can do. And of course, we need regulatory harmonization for rare disease. Our definition of rare disease in the law enforced in Argentina talk about 1 in 2,000 is a mimic of the European definition. The problem that 1 in 2,000 is only less than 20,000 affected people in Argentina, and that do not promote any investment to work out with that huge minimum quantity of consumers in the market. Next slide. So Argentina needs to be inserted within the cooperative activities, experience of the most advanced countries in order to make shortcuts in our progress. Argentina, we don't have everything put it into a given program, the cost efficiency of whatever we do will be not good. Argentina needs to coordinate. We need incentives. That should not be a matter of willing of the people from the scientific side or the industrial side. We should count with incentive, proper incentives to make that work. And next slide. Next slide. So there's much to be done, at least from the scientific and medical point of view, and we should start quickly, I hope, with the help of ERCAL and this kind of institution. Well, one important thing from Argentina is the view from the patients. And so I will leave the place to Ana Maria Forte, that she will speak in Spanish, so I will turn the language to Spanish. Ana María Forte es periodista. Ella tiene un programa de radio, Hablemos de Salud, de hace ya mucho tiempo, y es un programa donde se dedica gran parte a las enfermedades raras. Es además fundadora de la Organización de Fiebre Mediterránea Familiar de la Argentina, y va también a enfocar algunos temas que son prioritarios o de interés para los pacientes en Argentina. Entonces, Ana María Forte, te dejo el lugar a ti.
Muchísimas gracias por esta invitación. Gracias a este hombre tan importante en mi vida, gran ser humano y gran profesional, que es Emilio Roldan. Yo quisiera hacer una pequeñita introducción de por qué yo estoy acá. Y es muy simple, porque estoy viva. ¿Por qué estoy viva? Porque hace 4 años me descubrí, cuando digo me descubrí, es como que me siento Cristóbal Colón, porque no puedo decir me diagnostiqué fiebre mediterránea familiar porque no soy médica. Directamente desahuciada, con toda la ciencia, rodeada de los mejores especialistas de la salud, y no critico a ninguno de ellos. Yo tuve la suerte de diagnosticarme cuando me dijeron, ya con vos no podemos hacer nada más, no hay estudios, no hay pastillas, lo que hay es un gran estrés, y hasta acá llegamos. Respondí inmediatamente, y si esto me lo dicen en diciembre, bueno, yo se los creo, porque estoy ya estresada, pero no, en este momento vengo de mis vacaciones. Bien, es como que ahí me desconecté, me enojé con la ciencia y dije que yo lo iba a descubrir. Yo sabía que lo iba a descubrir, pero no sabía el cómo. Una mañana, lo quiero hacer sintético, sé que hay poco tiempo, una mañana me levanto un domingo, no me olvido nunca más, porque ahí fue la primera, viví, me asenté en la tierra. Dije, cuando me levanté, brucelosis. Brucelosis, digo, bueno, los médicos tienen razón. No solo estoy estresada, sino que me van a internar en un neuropsiquiátrico. Mientras decía eso, iba a la computadora, mi amigo del alma, la computadora, mi amiga, pongo brucelosis, sabía perfectamente lo que era, y al cuarto renglón decía, no confundir con fiebre mediterránea familiar. Me costó 4 renglones de leer en Google. Ahí nomás cliqué, que le agradezco porque digo que a él le debo la vida, y cada vez que lo veo se lo digo, el doctor, espérenme un minutito porque me bloqueo, Juan Arostegui, me bloquea pensar que yo hoy no podía estar acá porque hubiese estado muerta. El doctor Juan Arostegui, de España, gran investigador, leí una bibliografía en que me pintaba de pie a cabeza. Tenía los 8 síntomas. Llamo a un médico y le digo, ¿con cuántos síntomas vos podés diagnosticar? Y me dijo, de 4 a 6. Bueno, yo tengo los 8. Me dijo, dame 2 horas. A las 2 horas me dijo, te felicito. Anda el lunes a tal lado, sácate el genético. A los 3 meses, fiebre mediterránea familiar. Me salvé la vida mía y de mis hijos, porque mis hijos también la heredaron. En ese momento dije, a mí no me importa ya mi vida, me importa la de mis hijos. Y después fui por más. A los 4 meses tenía armada la asociación, y me empecé a relacionar rápido con un montonazo de gente. ¿Qué quiero decir con esto? Que muchas veces la ciencia no llega, y llegamos nosotros mismos a descubrirnos nuestra propia enfermedad. Acá lo importante, lo fundamental, es de que acá en la Argentina se habla muchísimo de la importancia de la relación entre médico-paciente, familiares. Y yo digo, ¿cómo pueden tener una buena relación médico-paciente, si una consulta dura 7 minutos, por ejemplo, acá en la Argentina, la salud es gratuita, porque la pagamos todos los argentinos a través de nuestros impuestos, por eso es gratuita. Y cada paciente tiene 7 minutos para ser escuchado o no, para entrar, si le toman la presión, si le preguntan 2 o 3 veces, si hacen una ficha, se fueron los 7 minutos. Por eso la enfermedad rara o poco frecuente, sí, puede ser rara, pero no poco frecuente. No se llega al diagnóstico. Entonces, se muere o se vive subdiagnosticado. Lo que yo propongo para nuestra querida Argentina, y quizá para bastantes, digo, algunos países, ¿no es cierto?, también de Latinoamérica, que se puedan crear, ¿no es cierto?, centros de ayuda para las organizaciones, en el cual estén abocados pura y exclusivamente a enfermedades poco frecuentes. Los tratamientos desde ya tienen que ser consensuados, pero debido a lo que ya expliqué, no se puede consensuar ningún tratamiento, o muy poquitos. Me refiero a enfermedades poco frecuentes. Tampoco tenemos voluntariado, o sea, somos 6 o 7 que estamos trabajando de la mañana a la noche a destajo, entregando nuestras horas, dejando nuestra labor, nuestro trabajo, por realmente ayudar a la gente, porque se encuentra sola, se encuentra desamparado. Ahora armamos la red de niños, la armamos muy rápido. Tuvimos 47, después de la convocatoria, 47 niños con enfermedades poco frecuentes, como autoinflamatorias, como FAPA, fiebre mediterránea familiar, TRAPS, enfermedades que en otros países son muy comunes y que acá realmente estamos en pañales. Entonces, es mucha la ayuda que necesitamos. Un centro de referencia. Ya se está armando dentro de la Facultad de Medicina de Ciencias Médicas de La Plata para los alumnos de 4º y 5º años que puedan recibir una preparación especializada. O sea, eso para nosotros es un adelanto inmensamente grande, pero se necesitan centros de referencia para que el profesional que salga capacitado pueda dar una mano a las necesidades que en la Argentina existe en cuanto a las enfermedades poco frecuentes. Algunas veces nosotras, las asociaciones, somos las personas que estamos reemplazando, supliendo el agujero negro que queda en la medicina, que son las enfermedades poco frecuentes. ¿Qué necesitamos? Necesitamos voluntarios de todos los países. Necesitamos ayuda de fundaciones para poder seguir subsistiendo. Necesitamos apoyo de la industria farmacéutica a través del programa radial y televisivo. Asiduamente invitamos a los profesionales y justamente hoy estuvimos hablando de enfermedades poco frecuentes con el doctor Crespi de La Plata, que bien lo conoce el doctor Emilio Roldan. Necesitamos urgente que llegue ayuda, porque ya no damos más. Nuestra asociación está sobrepasada. Muchos reconocimientos, muchos premios, pero no podemos subsistir.
Muy bien,
Estoy en este momento hablando con el corazón, brindando totalmente la ayuda que nosotros podamos brindar y que nosotros podamos recibir.
Gracias, Ana.
Muchas gracias por el espacio.
Mil gracias, Ana María.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
No escucho.
So I guess we should open up for questions. And one of the things that I noticed from Emilio, but also from Ana Maria, and it reminded me of living in Ecuador, and that is that I think Emilio referred it to the Black economy. I think in Ecuador, it was called the informal economía informal. What is your guesstimate? What fraction of the population works in the informal economy in Argentina? Because in Ecuador, I've heard figures ranging from 40 to 50%. A large fraction of the population essentially in informal activity.
You know that, like any informal, the information is always not formal. So, but we assume that the population in a whole or in part, around 35–40% of the population has activities in black. So that is the consequence of having economical instability during decades, during many years. So that is a sequela we have in Argentina that is impacting in all the programs, economic programs, research programs, health programs. So from one side, when we bring the topic of rare diseases, immediately the politicians have in mind the idea of great cost and expenditure for few people. So that's the way the topic became in the mind of the many politicians, which is not the right way, of course, but at least they have it now in mind that rare diseases are here and that's something that must be done in order to organize. Because the first situation to make the things costly efficiently is organization.
So thank you for that. So I guess the figure is similar in Ecuador. Now in Ecuador, if you had a cédula, which is an ID card, you could get basic health services if you went to one of the public hospitals. Is that true in Argentina and other Latin American countries? Or must you have insurance or private insurance or through your employer to get health services?
Well, of course, people that has 100% of its activity in the black market has no insurance, has no possibility of getting an insurance. So they go to the public hospital, and in the public hospital, as Ana Maria told us, the attendance is very quick, 5–7 minutes per patient, no time to recognize any condition that is not in a very common condition. So that's why I remark also that with the people, not the specialists in rare disease, the people which are working in the first line of attendance, they should be educated on rare diseases in this part of the world.
Okay. So thank you for clarifying that. So I think, and I don't remember the slide that Steve had with the areas we should cover. I'm wondering whether the economic realities should also factor into health services. Just to say, in Ecuador, your cédula is linked to your thumbprint. So if you're going to a big public hospital or any public activity, they take your thumbprint and that gives you access to health services, but it's always linked to the cédula. So if you don't have the ID card, you don't have access. But if you have a cédula through your thumbprints, you can get access to healthcare, at least in Ecuador. Any other questions, comments? I see that Steve is taking notes and that we're up to, I think, 23 participants. Surely there must be other comments or questions. Well, okay.
Hi, Gareth here from Australia. Yeah. I just plopped something in the chat when Emilio was talking, because it talked about the drug manufacturing capacity in Argentina, and I just wanted to pick up on something from another region. So recently in India, the government has released a new export bill, and I put the link into the bill in the chat, but it has a specific focus on orphan drugs. orphan drug development and repurposing as economic opportunities for the Indian government. So I just put that in there in case Emilio in the Argentinian context, whether that's helpful to reference to in any way. So I just wanted to draw attention to that. And the other thing that I think also pick up on your point, Emilio, around prevention is that we had a meeting specifically around rare disease prevention with the Indian Ministry recently, and that actually included representatives from their pharmaceutical development sort of arm, when thinking about prevention, I think it's important to think about the 4 different types of prevention, from quaternary to tertiary to secondary to primary. Often people jump straight to primary when they think about prevention, but there are many levels of prevention and many opportunities for prevention at each of those levels. So I think it's important when people think about prevention, think about quaternary, tertiary, secondary, primary, and don't just think about primary prevention. There are probably a lot of opportunities for emerging economies, LMIC, in quaternary prevention, particularly in the area of things like genetic diagnostics and how you implement them, because there are actually a lot of opportunities to first do no harm and actually save resources if you implement appropriately or in tailored ways. So I just wanted to sort of draw attention to those things.
Thank you. I agree completely with you.
We did get a question from Milagros Maribel about undiagnosed, a little bit undiagnosed diseases or difficulties in obtaining a diagnosis particularly for urea cycle disorder. So I don't know if Domenica or Maria Acosta from the Undiagnosed Disease Program there at the NIH Clinical Center, if you see the question, or perhaps we could answer that offline later on, if you had any comments. But I know we do have a urea cycle disorder network or consortium within the Rare Diseases Clinical Research Network, so we can also provide a link to that group here.
Yeah.
Yes, I see that we will be happy to work on that. There's a large consortium. Andrea Groftman works with that. Happy to try to answer that. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Any questions?
Yeah, we will keep in touch, but offline with the Undiagnosed Disease Network. Yeah. Okay.
Other questions or comments?
I think we should thank all 3 speakers, Steve, Emilio, and Ana Maria, for very interesting presentations. I think it's probably a good time to remind everybody our next Zoom conference will be on the 31st of March in Australia. That's the 30th of March for most of you. The time of the call will be, so Steve is already.
Thank you very much, yeah. My apologies.
That's okay, because there was some confusion. So the time in Queensland, which is where I'm located and where the talks are organized from, does never change. There's no daylight saving. So whatever time it is, it's set. So you will need to check if the time changes wherever you are, because you're going to summer or winter time, depending on if you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. But we'll meet again on the 30th for most of you, 31st for people such as Gareth and myself.
I had another comment. Oh, go ahead, Jürgen, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we'll make the recording available after we're done. Steve and I will coordinate that, but I have an idea on how to do that.
I had a thought too as we were going through this. Perhaps we should schedule at some point, either for a webinar or for one of these sessions, to have some of the editors of the various journals in the region who we could perhaps have them come on board and discuss the difficulties in publishing rare diseases research in the journals. We actually had this problem also back in the the 1980s. And I think, again, it was talking with several of the editorial boards and the editors to highlight the need to have this research published more frequently. And I think what we can see after almost 40 years now, the difference in publication with respect to the rare diseases. So there might be some things that we can do to help highlight this need and perhaps gain some agreement to have even selected columns on rare diseases as some of the other journals have done. So please think about that as you go along too. I think that might be helpful to increase the emphasis in the literature.
Yeah, sorry, there is a question from Gabriela, and she's asking, can Emilia and Anna Maria tell us about the impact of COVID on persons with rare disease in Argentina? I'm interested in this topic too. Can Emilio or Anna Maria tell us?
Yeah, but I was trying to leave the exclusivity of that to your webinar of next March 25.
Yeah, but this is a question from Gabriela. This is a question from Gabriela, not from myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Of course, we're going to talk more on your seminar next March 25, but the impact is more or less similar as any other Latin American country in the sense that we have very few information on what's happening. We know that many treatments have been delayed. Many patients with severe rare diseases has a lot of difficulty in the accessibility. It's a challenge, mostly in many provinces or distant cities. So the COVID is a huge negative impact for rare diseases, and we will talk about that more in 2 weeks.
And I think Eurordis and NORD both have published some studies, or at least put it up on their website. And I know the Office of Rare Diseases Research at NIH is conducting a study that's nearing completion, and on several thousands of patients, measuring the impacts of that will become available very shortly too. And,
the other thing, just to pick up on publications, I was in a Chinese rare disease meeting the other day, and when they've actually looked at the Chinese Medical Association has 140 medical journals underneath it, and it's got 55,000 reports in there, which case reports, not forget other article types. And when they looked at the 55,000 case reports across the 140 medical journals, the first looks like 90% of the case reports were actually rare diseases. So it just wasn't called rare diseases and wasn't aggregated as rare diseases. Because of that, it's looking like the Chinese Medical Association will start a specific rare diseases journal. So often that there are publications, it's a matter of counting and aggregation, like so many things in rare diseases, and that's often not done for various reasons. But it is one interesting perspective to have when discussing with journal editors those sorts of numbers and that thing.
I think Alberto may have had a question, perhaps.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Alberto Cornier from Puerto Rico. I just want to, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. First, I would like to thank you for inviting me to the meeting tonight. But also, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Puerto Rican Journal of Medicine and Public Health. And as such,